Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniela. I guess we'll get started with the presentation. We just wanted to give in, as Jen mentioned, a few minutes to everybody who is still figuring out how to log into WebEx. As Jen mentioned, if you haven't had a chance to complete the census, please do so. It's 10 questions and it takes less than 10 minutes. Any questions that you may have, please ask in the Q&A box and we will get to them towards the end of the presentation. There will be a time for question and answers. As mentioned, again, your microphone and camera are off so that we can go through this presentation and then we will go through the Q&A. This meeting will be recorded and will be available to review after. And if you have any questions, you can always go to the website, boston.gov American Legion, as you see there. Or you can contact me at daniela.sanchez@boston.gov. And again, si la presentación va a ser en inglés, o si tiene alguna pregunta en español, siempre me puede escribir a mí y haremos la presentación juntos, ¿vale? Bueno, all right. Great, good to hear that Nancy can hear us. So thank you all for coming. This is a presentation about American Legion and how to make it safer and slower. I will go briefly through an introduction. My name is Daniela Sanchez Zamora, and I am a transportation planner with the city of Boston. And I will briefly introduce all my colleagues because they will be participating as well in the Q&A section. So I will go to Dan. Dan, can you present yourself?
I apologize. I don't know how to change to presenting myself on the top, but my name is Dan Merrow. I'm an engineer on the project, working with Daniela on the American Legion Highway at BTD.
Thank you, Dan. How about you, Jen?
Hi, my name is Jen Rowe. I also am a member of the active transportation team at BTD and working as a planner with Daniela on this project.
Thank you. John?
Hi there, John Monticelli. I'm the other engineer on our active transportation team, working with Dan Murrow and Daniela, the American Legion project.
Thank you, John. And finally, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Saskian. I'm the Active Transportation Director in the City of Boston Transportation Department, and I am overseeing all of these fine people's work.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, let's get started. Okay, so in today's meeting, we will go over what's informed our work so far, including the many comments that we've received from the public, the safety tools that we can use in American Legion on a more short-term and long-term basis, the near-term strategies, design strategies that we can implement on this corridor, and other projects and initiatives that are happening around American Legion. There will be, as mentioned before, please type your questions in the Q&A box and we will get to them towards the end of the presentation. And whatever we don't get to today, we will answer and then have that information available and emailed to you. Okay, so this is what you'll see in the slide is American Legion, and this is the area that we are studying from Blue Hill Ave to Cummins Highway. In blue, you will see the intersections with an S is if they're signalized, and unsignalized intersections that are along the corridor. There's also, we wanted to highlight that there's two great community resources, Franklin Park and the Boston Nature Center, which serve as great open space for the public. There's been planning efforts around American Legion, which include Green Links Boston, which discussed creating parks paths for all people of all ages to connect different parks around Boston. The Go Boston 2030 plan, which is our transportation plan, which informs our vision for the city of Boston to create more equitable travel choices. And the Franklin Park Action Plan, which essentially is working towards determining what Franklin Park will look like for the next 30 years. So both the three plans have identified American Legion as an important corridor. Green Links, as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, identifies it as a great connector to green spaces because of its location next to Franklin Park and its connectivity to other green spaces. Then there's the Go Boston 2030, which identifies it as a better bike corridor, and the Franklin Park Action Plan, which mentions this edge of the park as a place with many resources for the community, but with difficult to access road. We've heard from you that the drivers are speeding at all times of the day. The drag racing is a very large issue that is keeping the neighbors up at night and is causing a lot of damage on the corridor. We've also heard that there's a lot of crashes happening continuously, that walking doesn't feel safe, that just essentially being an American Legion doesn't feel safe for any users, but that walking especially doesn't feel safe and doesn't allow you to access resources by foot that are on the corridor, and that biking is very scary on this corridor. We've heard this through the years, but also recently, Livable Streets did a survey with over 400 responses, which identified some of the top concerns on the corridors and some of the things that people would like to see. Speeding and drag racing were again a top concern, and people wanted safer places to cross and to walk, as well as continuous bike lanes. Based on what we've heard from you and the surveys that have been recorded, we've created some draft project goals for this project, which are safer street for everyone. This will include slowing, for drivers, for pedestrians, and for cyclists, that is comfortable and welcoming for all types of ages and people and abilities, and that connects to green spaces. Not only the great ones that are around American Legion, but also to that connects in not only in the community that is around American Legion, but also to other areas around town, so there's Mattapan, Rosendale, Dorchester, and beyond. So I wanted to go over briefly the information that we have been gathering and the research that has been done to inform this project. We've collected traffic volumes and recorded all day and all night traffic speeds. We've modeled the traffic flow that currently exists and conducted observations along the corridor, as well as evaluated the available crash data for the past 2 years. And we will go over that data that we've gathered so far. Okay, so I think it's important to mention that safety is very much tied to traffic speeds. So the cities, overall, for a lot of the city streets, it's 25 miles an hour. At 25 miles an hour, there's a 30% likelihood of having a fatal or severe injury when you're involved in a crash. At 30 miles an hour, that goes up to almost 50%. And if it's less than 20, or if it's at 20, the likelihood is 17%. So what we've learned is that it is too easy to speed on American Legion. So one of the first places that we did speed counts was Franklin Hill Avenue, where 23% of the drivers are traveling at over 35 miles or more. As you can see on this chart, the speed limit for this area is 30 miles an hour. In red, orange, and yellow-ish, you will see that those are the drivers that are going 10 miles per hour or above the speed limit. And then in blue is at speed limit, or between the first 5 miles an hour that you're speeding. At the intersection of Morton Street and Walk Hill, sorry. So the second count we conducted was in American Legion between Morton and Walk Hill. Here, the speed limits are 35 miles an hour. As you can see by the red and the lighter red-orange color, over 59% of the drivers were speeding and traveling over 40 miles an hour. And in the third count that we did was on American Legion, just north of Mount Hope Street. And here, 45% of drivers were going 35 miles an hour or more, which is, again, 5 miles over or more the speed limit, which is listed at 30. So as you can see, all over the corridor, a lot of speeding overall at all hours of the day, not only during the nighttime or during specific hours, it happens all throughout the day. This is we looked at also the crashes that are happening on American Legion. This is for the past 2 years. We reviewed all the data that is available currently. So this is a heat map. So you will be able to see sort of where they're most concentrated. The dots that are in purple and in blue are where there was a pedestrian or a bicyclist crash. And from the data that we've gathered, we found that any crashes that involve pedestrians or cyclists, 100% of them resulted in injuries, which means that an ambulance had to be called in and the person had to be taken to hospital or for treatment. And that was also the same case for motorist crashes, 57% of the time, which is very high in comparison to other streets around Boston. And the only reason why you see maybe one dot or two, that doesn't say the frequency, they're just piling on each other. Okay, sorry. So before we move on to our safety toolkit, I want to briefly sort of emphasize that as you can see from this data, there is speeding at all hours of the day and really way beyond what the speed limit is. And there's a lot of crashes happening in American Legion, which the data shows exactly what we've heard from constituents that live on this area. So I want to briefly go over the safety toolkits that are available for reducing speeds on American Legion. So one of the first things we can do, or one of the things we can do, is create more time to cross the street. Currently, at signalized intersections, that the time is very short. So we can update the traffic signals to provide more time for pedestrians to cross. We can also reallocate travel lanes. This is, in terms of safety, this helps control the speed at which people are traveling by pacing drivers one behind the other. So essentially, one driver decides or is able to pace the rest of the drivers. And strategic reductions of travel lanes have shown that it could reduce the number of crashes by up to 40%, 47%, I'm sorry. Can also provide protected bike lanes. This creates a safe space for cycling that is separate from vehicles and from the people walking. These bike lanes would be generally wide enough to ride side by side and have families ride on them. And we will be able to provide bike lanes from Cummins to Mattapan Square. That would create a link to the Southwest Corridor through Franklin Park and to John Paul II Park down through Cummins. So we would also be looking into how to create safer turns on the corridor. As we've noticed now, the turns are the amount of travel lanes that are there create these very unsafe turns where people are walking and they might not be able to be seen. And because of the high speeds, it just creates a lot of opportunity for crash. So in order to reduce that, we would restrict the number of turns at some of the locations that have been identified, making drivers have to go to a signalized intersection in order to make these turns. And we will also be looking at how to add new crosswalks at key locations along the corridor. This includes near Circuit Drive at Franklin Park and at Stella Road further south on the corridor. We're also looking at other locations that we've heard, such as the Haley Pilot School, and we welcome more feedback on this locations where new crosswalks might help access to pedestrians. Another thing in our safety toolkit is pedestrian protection islands. And along the corridor, some crosswalks do have protection islands, but not all. So in the short term, we can make these through temporary materials. This makes turning movements more protected. I mean, the pedestrians more protected from the turning movements of vehicles. But in the long term, we would ideally like to build this permanently. And one of the other things we've been working and we've noticed along the corridor is that the bus stops are not accessible to people with different disabilities. So we'll be working with the MBTA on which is the best bus stop locations and building accessible stops, incorporating benches, figuring out where these places should be. Okay, so now we will go over sort of what this could look like in a more short term. Yes. Okay, so on your left-hand side is an image of the corridor. The first, so on your, as you can see from Google Images usually, the right one, you will see that there's a bike lane. Sorry, maybe the best one to start with is what a typical intersection would look like, which is the one on the bottom right, which is a bike lane in each direction going northbound and southbound. At certain locations near Franklin Park, what we want to do is move the bike lane to the left hand, to the location where the southbound bike lane is, and have that be two ways. That way will help us preserve the parking that's on that side, but also provide safe access for people to get into Franklin Park and be able to access Circuit Drive without having to go through all those lanes. There's also a signalized intersection there, which would be a safer crossing for everyone, which will lead us to the top, in where you can see the bike lane only heading southbound, because you can go on Franklin Park. From Martin to Walk Hill, our intention for most of the corridor is to make it on one vehicle travel lane. This will provide bike lanes in each direction. As you can see on the top and the bottom image, there is a bus. This indicates that when there is a bus stop, there is an interaction between the cyclist and the bus. The bus will pull in, pick up the people waiting for the bus, and then it will pull into the traffic lane, into the travel lane, and continue on its journey. And the cyclist will be able to continue on protected bike lanes. The goal is to provide as much protection for all users. Okay, and this is on the lower Mount Hope side. As you can see in these three scenarios, again, our hope is to provide protection, but also accommodate the different uses. So on this in the area where the mall is, there's a lot of different uses and a lot of different shopping and amenities. So we want to make sure we accommodate the traffic as well as provide protected bike lanes for this park. And in the lower side, in the lower part, there's some parking that we would ideally like to keep as well. because it is there currently as well. And in the bottom side, you can see this is one of the scenarios where, because of how that intersection looks like, it would be very difficult for us to have enough space in the width of the current street to provide protected bike lanes. So in that situation, the flexibles would go. We will go over this if you have any questions. Make sure to write them in the Q&A, as mentioned previously. And now we will go over other initiatives and projects that are happening around the corridor. As I mentioned earlier, there's the Franklin Park Action Plan. There's just a lot of information that you see on the screen. Don't worry about it. But essentially, as I mentioned before, what they're working on is the vision and action that will inform how the park will look like for the next 100 years and how it will work. So if you want to get involved, make sure to visit their website, franklinparkactionplan.com. And there's also some information, and they're doing public meetings as well. And then there's two projects happening on city streets near American Legion. This is the Commons Highway Complete Streets, as well as the Blue Hill Ave transportation plan. As mentioned before, with the Commons Highway Complete Street, the possibility would be to create a connection all the way from the Southwest Corridor through Franklin Park, down American Legion and Commons Highway to open space. Okay. And I also briefly wanted to mention that we are offering some Blue Bikes discount passes. There's a free 90-day pass currently available to anybody who works at a grocery store, pharmacies, restaurants, or shops in Boston. All that information is available at boston.gov/bikeshare. And there's also many employers who offer discounts in order to access Blue Bikes. But if you are in public assistance or have any income eligible access, you can get a $5 30-day pass or an annual pass for $50 and be able to use Blue Bikes. And we also wanted to provide some MBTA updates. As of September 1st, in fares that you pay cash or with a Charlie ticket, which is the paper ticket, will be the same rate as with the Charlie card. And there's going to be some bus services changes happening this fall. Like Bus 14 will be running at regular service levels, and some other routes will will become more frequent than they were before. That map is not very clear, but you can find more information at mbta.com/service changes. Okay, so before we go into the Q&A, I just wanted to provide you again with the opportunity to know how you can stay in touch. So we'll be having more in-person events on the week of the 21st to the 27th. We'll be at Stella Road in the mornings on Tuesday. Then on Thursday, we'll be at the Franklin Hill Park playground area, which is on Shandon Road and Fairmont Heights. And then we'll be at the Franklin Park accessible playground that's on the American Legion side on Saturday. And then we'll also be offering a virtual meeting, which will be similar to this. Same content will be covered, and again, will be available in Spanish and English. So just encourage anybody that you think should be informed about this to sign up and register for those meetings. And you can visit our website for the summary of this virtual meeting, as well as to review the material that we've covered today. And you can also sign up to our email list about this project, in which we will send out the information that you're seeing right now. And if you have any questions after this meeting that weren't answered or you didn't get a chance to add to the Q&A, you can always contact me. My name is Daniela Sanchez, and my email is daniela.sanchez@boston.gov, and that is my phone number, which, as you can see on the screen. Okay, and now we will move on to the Q&A.
Thank you, Daniela. So this is Jen again. I'm going to be reading questions that were submitted. We have received a lot of questions, so just wanted to note that anything that we aren't able to cover within the time period we have for this meeting, we will kind of get in touch via email to make sure those questions are answered. So I'm going to start out with a question that came in from Rick Yoder. Rick's question is why we didn't include American Legion Highway south of Cummins Highway in the study and improvement plan.
Sorry, Jen, I don't know who you want to answer that question.
Oh, sorry. I guess I'll pass that to you, Stephanie.
Sure. So with this project, we have focused on the areas in the city that are on the high crash network. Segments of American Legion are in the top 3% of streets citywide for motor vehicle crashes. Those segments are north of Cummins and along the edge of Franklin Park. In addition, our work is informed by the long-term planning efforts that Daniela mentioned previously that focus on the section between Cummins and Blue Hill Ave. These are also sort of natural limits to the project given other nearby efforts, including the Blue Hill Ave Transportation Action Plan, as well as the work that the Public Works Department is leading in rethinking Cummins between American Legion and Mattapan Square.
Thank you, Stephanie. We'll now move to a second question from Rick. Where is the funding coming from for this round of improvements? And I'll pass this question to Daniela.
Hi, thank you for unmuting me. I was looking for the unmute button. So the budget is coming from their general funds, and I think Stephanie will have a more clear answer on that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. American Legion is funded in the FY21 capital budget for the city of Boston. It was included upon the recommendation of Chief of Streets Chris Osgood and Commissioner Greg Rooney based on, Daniela, you're showing the wrong screen. Or Dan is.
Is the website, is it on the right screen? Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine now. The Chief of Streets and our commissioner recommended American Legion be included in the FY21 budget about 9 months ago when the budget process begins for the city of Boston based on the safety concerns on the corridor, our understanding of the conditions of the assets, as well as looking at our existing plans. So Go Boston 2030, the Green Links Plan, the Franklin Park Action Plan. It is not included as its own line. It's within the Strategic Bike Network budget.
Thanks, Stephanie. The next question, again from Rick, that came in was, should we be thanking any of our elected officials for helping to find funding? And I can answer this one. Mayor Martin J. Walsh included this project in his proposed capital plan for this fiscal year upon the recommendation of Chief of Streets Chris Osgood and Acting Transportation Commissioner Gregory Rooney. The next question was from David Wien. What is the highest speed that was recorded during your day or night measurements? I will turn that over to John, engineer, to answer that question.
Dan, if you can go back to the first slide there, a series that have the ETR data with the graphs. there we go. So the different graphics show the different locations that we took they're called automated traffic recording devices, the rubber tubes that you see leaning across the street. We did 3 of those as Danielle walked through the different segments of the corridor as the land use kind of changed. So this one here is the northern section that shows the section that is south of Franklin Park, but does have residences along the south side, and then goes into having a couple educational facilities over there as you move further south down the corridor. If you can, nope. So you can see the time of day is on the bottom there, and then the rightmost is that bright red. So you can see even in the middle of the day, in the times when school buses are around or people are driving to the market after work, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, you can see that top bar. It's visible even at this scale. You can see how many vehicles are actually going over 45 miles an hour here. And as Daniela mentioned, in a 35 mile an hour zone, we understand that it is higher than the city-wide posted limit, and we do have a comment later on to explain about that differentiation. But you can see in these bars here, again, that top red are all the vehicles going over 45 miles an hour.
So I'm just going to mute real quick to just get to the point of the questions because we got a lot to go through. He was just asking what the highest recorded was. And during the recording, we did capture a few vehicles, 2 or 3, going between 70 and 80 miles per hour on the corridor. As John was explaining, we see very high percentages of people traveling faster than 35 miles an hour, which drastically increases the amount of severe injury or death. But 75 to 80 was the highest speed that we saw on the corridor. I'm going to pass it on to Jen to continue on the questions.
Thanks, John and Dan. The next question came from Adam. Were there any tickets issued for speeding violations during these counts? And I can answer that one. We do not have access to BPD's database of violations, but they are active on the corridor to deter drag racing. The following question, also from Adam. Has any consideration been given to renaming American Legion Highway? Has connotations to drivers that they can drive fast. And more so than what the street is called, its design allows and even encourages fast driving. With this project, we're focused on using design tools to better control speeds and improve safety and comfort for people who are walking, bicycling, and waiting for the bus. The next question came in from David, and it was regarding extending the signal crossing times. Are the PED signals currently concurrent or exclusive, and are there no turn red restrictions to avoid conflicts? What changes would be contemplated? I'm going to hand this one to John again. You're able to answer this one. Thank you.
Yep. So we went through and looked at each of these signalized intersections. Some of them were lacking in the amount of time that was being given to cross either American Legion or the side streets. So we did update those timings to provide the standard guidance, to adhere to the standard guidance for the transportation department there. Franklin Hill Ave, Walk Hill, Hannaberry, those intersections are to be kept as exclusive pedestrian phases. And then Mount Hope and Canterbury Kingbird, those are both remaining as concurrent. As far as the no turn on red signs, while out in the field, when we were doing our field walk, we didn't see many of those signs at the signalized intersections, whether they were supposed to be there or they should be added. It is a standard practice for BTD to include those signs at intersections where we have exclusive PED phases. So we'll bring that item back to the signals team so that they can make sure that they're incorporating all of these safety concerns and considerations in their analyses.
Thank you, John. The next question came from Stephanie Regis. Turns are already restricted at many areas via signage from Mount Hope to Canterbury Street. How will this be enforced? Can I pass this on to Dan?
Yes, one moment. So there are many breaks currently in the median, especially along the shopping Plaza, and we are going to look to try and close some of those medians either partially or fully. This will restrict people from traveling, having to cross 2 lanes of traffic to go in the opposite direction, and would instead have people have to go to the intersections and then make a left and another left. In some places, like I just said, we'll look to completely close the median to prevent turns, and we don't want to unnecessarily limit access. We're really just trying to look at it where it would be a large safety benefit for minimal expense for people driving and trying to get into the shopping plaza.
Thank you, Dan. Next question came in from David Ween. What type of protection do you anticipate for the protected bike lanes? Dan, would you take this one too?
Sure. So what we have used in the past is just singular stick flex posts that are small and stick up once or in one area. And the concern was that these flex posts tend to disappear. More recently, we've been using flex posts with a modular curb base. It's basically a long piece of plastic on the bottom, so it bolts in 2 different places instead of just one. This has the double effect of both providing a plastic curb if the flex post gets taken down, and it's also sturdier than the general flex post that you may have seen in the past. So we are sticking with flex posts, but a better option than we've used before.
Thank you, Dan. Another question from David was whether it's necessary to maintain 4 lanes of traffic on American Legion, noting that the 4 lanes invite speeding, and so wondering whether reducing the number of lanes could reduce the traffic. Dan, could you take that one as well? Your perspective there?
Yes. So wherever we can, we are trying to reduce American Legion down to 1 lane where it is safe and effective. Unfortunately, American Legion carries between 25 and 30,000 vehicles a day. So while we're reducing them where we can, the volumes are very high, and we see very long queues at the intersections, which can tend to break them if the vehicles get backed up through additional intersections. So we are working to get it out of 4 lanes as much as possible, but for this condition that we are presenting, we won't be able to get that everywhere.
Thank you, Dan. The next question is more about the meeting setup, which is David asked why this meeting is set up so that like we receive your questions, but attendees can't see each other's. This is kind of standard meeting practice. We'll be reading the questions aloud, and we'll also share summaries online in the following days. Keep a lookout for that. Daniela, did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Jen. I just wanted to briefly mention that in previous public meetings, this is a question of security as well. When the beginning of the virtual meetings happened, a lot of people were getting bombed in, which means that they would be inappropriate behavior. So it's about keeping everybody safe in this meeting in context as well.
Thank you for adding that, Daniela. The next question is from Christian McNeil. What's the schedule for making these changes? Daniela, would you take that one too?
Yes, thank you. So it sort of depends on what the treatment is. Let me briefly go back to the safety toolkit. We're hoping to make some of these changes as soon as possible, like adding more time to the traffic signals for pedestrians to cross. And other ones can be made this fall, such as reallocating the travel lanes and creating protected bike lanes. And other things take more time because they need different construction and more planning and design, such as the safer turns and adding new crosswalks or building the pedestrian islands in concrete and more long-lasting materials, although some temporary measures can be done. And this one, because, for example, the accessible bus stops requires coordination and construction, they would also take more time. Okay.
Thank you, Dana. The next question came from Abner and Vanilla, and the question is, many people are complaining about drag racing. The only thing that they see to prevent it is the area was from Rock Hill to Blue Hill Ave. But these races happen on the 4th mile from Mount Hope to Walk Hill. So the question is, how does this project stop the drag racing? I will pass this one on to Dan.
Sure. So drag racing is unfortunately a common activity in Boston. We've looked at strategies around the city, as well as other possible lessons from other streets in Boston. Unfortunately, our tools are limited, especially for this fast approach that we're taking. And a lot of this weight lands on the shoulders of the Boston police, as well as other cities in the country. That being said, in the coming hopefully spring, we will be seeing neighborhood slow street zones in the Mount Hope and Canterbury region, which has additional changes to American Legion, which should see all-day safety improvements.
Thank you, Dan. Next question's from David again. Even if there aren't high crash rates, wouldn't it be a huge improvement for pedestrians and cyclists in the part of American Legion that's south of Cummins Highway? I will pass this on to Daniela.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, the goal of this project is to address the concerns that are happening, as Stephanie mentioned, and that were identified in the planning documents that have been drafted before. And it is what is currently in this project scope. In future years or in other projects, this can be maybe extended.
Great, thank you, Daniela. We have a question from Adam again. Why are cars prioritized over walking and biking? If there isn't space for 2-car lanes and protected bike lanes, then the city must reduce the car space, not the bike space. Is this not a priority corridor for biking and walking? I'm going to pass this to Stephanie.
This is a better question for Dan as the engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, I can take this. So we are fitting protected bike lanes absolutely everywhere that we possibly can along this corridor without making constructed changes, because that's what we can do in the short amount of time that we have. Sorry, so to that question, there will be extensive protected bike lanes throughout this whole corridor. There are a couple spaces where we may not be able to fit it because of space constraints, and getting rid of 2 lanes in those areas would cause large traffic delays that would back up through other intersections. And I can't actually make those changes without going through a much larger process, which we can't do in the time frame that we have. So to answer your question, I'm doing everything I can to get protected bike lanes on this whole corridor. We may not see the whole thing, but it will be a large portion.
Thanks, Dan. This next one is for you too. How will you assess the outcomes of this project? If the design fails to reduce crashes and speeding to nominal levels, what will you do to mitigate vehicular violence on the street?
Sure. So we are using every tool available at us to this time to improve safety and slow speeds. All of these tools are backed by significant research and should have an impact. We will also be looking at qualitative results from these interventions. For example, do people feel more comfortable waiting for the bus? Will people who live along the corridor feel safer crossing the street? Things like that. And we will, of course, come back and we will measure these things after the effect to see how they have worked upon the corridor.
Thank you, Dan. Next question again from Adam. Actually, never mind. We did answer that one. My apologies. We did have a second question. This survey could be done by anyone. Was it restrict? Oh, I believe this is in reference to the survey results from Livable Streets, I believe. Was it specific to our neighborhood along American Legion Highway? If not, how can we do an accurate survey for people that live in the neighborhood? Daniela, would you take that one?
Sure, thank you. Yes, Livable Streets was there for 6 weeks. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear on the slideshow. And they went all along the corridor from Blue Hill Ave to Cummins Highway, and all the neighbors, I believe, a couple, and they had street ambassadors, which means they were on foot, but they also had this survey available online, and they reached out to different community organizations to try to get as wide of a pool as possible that lives along the corridor. All this data, which I think they will be publishing soon, will also include the zip codes of the people that did answer. But I believe that their focus was very much on the neighbors along American Legion.
Thanks, Daniela. The next question came in from Lee Tuma. Will the Cummins Highway protected bike lanes be extended from Harvard Street to American Legion? Dan, could you answer that one?
Yes, we are planning on. 1 second. We are planning on including the bike lanes in that along American Legion from those two areas.
Thanks, Dan. Christian McNeil asked, are there any plans for simplifying Cummins Highway and American Legion intersection? And I'll pass that to Dan as well.
No, to simplify that intersection would require a lot of reconstruction, which we are not doing at this time, because again, that would take time and money to get through all of that, which we cannot do in this accelerated timeline that we were trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Dan. All right, looking through the questions again. Question is there street cleaning available for cleaning the protected bike lanes? Dan, that's for you too.
We design all of our protected bike lanes to be wide enough for the street cleaning vehicles to be able to be used. So they should be cleaned by the existing street cleaning vehicles that we have in the city.
Awesome, thanks, Dan. Looking at the questions again. All right, question. It's been common practice to make testimony publicly available in archives to hold city officials accountable. Will our questions be archived and publicly posted, or do we have to submit a FOIA to gain access? I can actually answer that question. The meeting is being recorded. It will be available. We'll post a summary of this discussion and answer any questions we could not get to within the hour available to this meeting. Speaking of which, we are kind of approaching on that hour. Daniela, did you have any closing words for kind of wrapping things up?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to briefly go over again the information that we have on how to stay in touch. There will be other scheduled events which we will go over this material, and you will have a chance to ask us more questions. So we will be not only virtually, which is on September 17th, which will be the same content available in Spanish and English. So please encourage anybody that you know might be interested to register. That is a virtual meeting, would be very similar to this one, but we would also have pop-ups in person along American Legion on the 22nd, the 24th, and the 26th at these different locations, as you can see on your screen, and at different times for your convenience as well. And as Jen mentioned, the summary of these virtual meetings, as well as the material And the questions that we couldn't get to, as well as the questions we did get to, will be available at American Legion and all answered. And if you do have any questions that we didn't get a chance to put in your Q&A box, in the Q&A box, you can feel free to send them to me or to leave me a voicemail, and we will get to them. So that was my short catch up.
And one quick reminder before we sign off for everyone to please do take the census if you haven't already. It's crucially important towards making sure that our city receives our due share of resources so we can do projects like this. So thanks, everyone.